Thanks for tuning in to Shootie School. In this video, we'll be learning about the Drums tab in EZDrummer 2. Keep in mind that if you're brand new to EZDrummer or music production software in general, you may want to check out my easy guide to EZDrummer video first, which I'll link to in the description, because in this video, we'll be getting as technical and detailed as possible. I'm using EZDrummer 2.1.8 64-bit on a PC. Keep in mind, if you're using a Mac, your Mac mouse or laptop may not have that obvious right-click function. If that's the case, you can always hold the Control key while left-clicking to achieve that right-click function. You can also check your system preferences to see if you can get a right-click button function from your mouse or trackpad otherwise. Don't forget to check your TuneTrack product manager to make sure you're using the latest version of EZDrummer 2. Feel free to hit the pause button when needed if I move too fast in this tutorial, and don't forget to check out my channel, Shootie School, for more EZDrummer 2 tutorials and related videos. Let's get started. Let's launch the program. EZDrummer 2 has a visual interface. Simply click with your mouse on any instrument to audition its sound. You might be interested that if you click on the rim of the snare drum, you can audition the side stick articulation. And here, also the bell of the ride. Let's click on the small white and black arrow icon on each instrument to bring up that instrument's menu, or simply right-click on any instrument as an alternative way to get to the instrument's menu. Here in the list is where you can change your selected instrument or kit piece. You'll have more options depending on how many EZDrummer expansion packs you purchase, which you can choose from this menu here. As you can see, I can access each snare drum from my electronic expansion pack, or from any expansion pack I've purchased for that matter. Just click on any instrument in the list to audition its sound at its highest velocity. Also, you can use these arrows to audition your drum sounds in order. And a hint, it's usually a goal for me to tax my computer as little as possible. So when I have really big mixes in my DAW going, I'm not wasting my computer's resources. So if you look in your instrument selection list, you'll notice at the top that it says None. If you select None, it should unload the samples needed for that instrument out of your memory, and that instrument shouldn't sound anymore, and you'll see the instrument grayed out. Tapping on that grayed out instrument will simply trigger the closest similar instrument, like this. For me, a great example of selecting None are the percussion instruments. I rarely use them, so I usually set them to None so my computer doesn't have to have them on standby, waiting to be played. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is exactly how EZDrummer works. Unloading instruments to free up memory, so I'd assume it's the same with EZDrummer. Also notice that you can either click on the small X box in the upper right to close the instrument's menu, or simply click anywhere outside of the box to get them to hide. Hey, shh, I want to tell you a secret. Right over here. Yep, there's a cowbell right here. That's right. And right over here, there's a maraca. Moving on, also in this tab just to the right is a knob to change the volume of the instrument. This is really good for a few reasons. First, it's convenient to have a volume knob here that does not affect velocity. But what's really cool is when you're on the mixer tab and you have no more room to turn up your fader, like the kick drum for example, maybe the fader is maxed out. If that's ever the case, you can go back here to the drums tab and you have a ton more headroom if it's needed. My point being is the fader for the kick drum on the mixer tab is not attached or synced with the volume knob on the drum tab's instruments menu. They work independently. And lastly, when you look at your mixer screen, notice that your toms, overheads, and other possible instruments are grouped together depending on what preset you're using. So there's no way to just turn up the floor tom on the mixer, for example, because there's no floor tom fader. All the toms are bussed together into a stereo mix on the mixer. So you can either turn all of your toms up or down, but not just one of them. So back here on the Drums tab, you can select whichever individual instrument that's been grouped on the Mixer tab and adjust its individual volume outside of its group. It's really important. This is how I can turn up just that floor tom, for example. If you're really tweaking your mixes in EZDrummer 2, this volume knob comes in handy often. Just underneath the volume knob, you can also change the pitch of your instrument. I change pitches in my drums often, but mostly for creative endeavors and instinct. So if an instrument has good tone, but the pitch isn't perfect, you can adjust this knob. You might notice that changing the pitch too much will stretch and distort the sound too much, which will hinder its natural tone, so a little goes a long way. Turn almost any snare into a piccolo with a moment of tweaking. If the lack of decay and sustain makes it sound fake, you could add some reverb in the Mixer tab, which we'll cover in my Mixer tab video on my channel. Lastly, about pitch, non-drummers or amateur drummers may not realize that drums can be tuned to notes, particularly the toms. You can literally build a scale of sorts. I've seen engineers do this in the studio before. It's not easy. A typical guitar tuner doesn't respond well to toms resonating through it, but the method does exist. Now, going just underneath the pitch knob is the kits menu. The kits menu, although it's located on this individual instrument menu, it adjusts settings for the entire kit, not just the current instrument you're working on. I'm kind of surprised it's hidden here in this individual kit instrument menu when it has a kit-wide adjustment capability. Now that we know, it's no big deal. You can select the first option to empty kit and unload every instrument from the kit. Nothing will make any sounds at this point. Maybe you want to build a kit from scratch and not be influenced by a drum preset. Either way, the option is here. Under the Empty Kit button is going to be a small list of default kits, and if you click on them, they will load all the matching or intended pieces for that kit. The first choice is DW, the default kit when you launch EZDrummer 2. Take note that I've loaded the 𝗥𝗚𝗄 kit. As you can see, it's missing some matching toms, simply because those toms weren't recorded in the original recording session, I assume. Rest assured that if you wanted to use a 𝗥𝗚𝗄 kit, but wanted more toms, you could always add them from other kits and expansions to complete your 𝗥𝗚𝗄𝗧 hybrid kit. Also keep in mind that you can tweak the pitch of the toms too, to help match the step in tones of the existing toms. Here's an idea. Notice there's no 10-inch tom loaded, or even a 10-inch 𝗥𝗚𝗄𝗧 tom available for that matter. Let's load the 12-inch 𝗥𝗚𝗄𝗧 tom into the 10-inch slot, like this. Now we have identical toms here. Now let's simply adjust the pitch of the newly loaded tom to simulate a 10-inch tom, like this. It's pretty cool, I think. Anyways, so there's your default kits to load. I think it's handy to hear all the instruments matched as intended by brand and by the engineers of the software. But in no way do you need to use it that way. Mixing, matching, and then tweaking your instruments is how you get your own sound. I encourage it. Next in the kits menu is your user preset menus. If you're new to EZDrummer 2, this should be empty. It's a great feature. After you've spent hours or days building your perfect sounding kit, you can now save it as your own preset. Let's make a custom sounding kit real quick. I'll empty the kit, add some pieces, tweak a few things, and then go back to the kits menu and save it. Save it. Select a name of your choosing and hit enter. So now I'll load my default modern kit and notice all my instruments have changed. It's not my preset anymore. Now I'll close the program. Let's say I come back tomorrow to continue building my kit. I launch EZDrummer 2 and just go to the kits menu. Go to user kits and select your recently saved kit. as you make more tweaks to your kit, simply go to the Kit's menu again and click on Save to update your user kit file. Or save as a new preset if you want to keep track of your work in steps in case you need to backtrack later. A good tip. As you can see, I can simply hit delete, which will delete forever the user kit you're on, so proceed with caution there, folks. You don't know what you got until it's gone. You should keep in mind that user kit presets will not retain work done in other tabs or the song track window down here. If you need to save this stuff outside of the user kit presets, you need to go to the File menu and save a project file to your computer, like so. So now if I open up that new file, anything I've done in the entire EZDrummer program has been saved. And this is also how EZDrummer works when using it in your DAW. If you save your DAW session file, all the work in EZDrummer 2 is saved as well in that particular DAW session. There's reason to do this one way or the other depending on your workflows, whether you save a preset, an entire project file, or just in your DAW. Now you know. Also keep in mind, if you select a user preset and make changes to it, an asterisk will appear indicating that you've manipulated the preset. And if this new preset is important to you, that asterisk is a hint that you should resave it. Let's go back to that kit's menu and look at the second to last option, the Manage in Finder button, which will show you the location on your computer where your user kits are stored. You can copy this file and send a kit to a friend or another computer to continue working on it. I'm going to copy this user kit preset, put it on my desktop. Now, I'm going to delete my user kit preset from the Tune Track Presets folder. Let me hop back into EZDrummer. It didn't go away, but I did delete it. Let me hit Rescan User Kits. And now it's gone. So, on my desktop, here's my kit. A quick advanced note is, if you rename this kit before you transfer it to another computer or another colleague to work on, like that, your new user kit name will not appear in EZDrummer 2. The metadata for the name is not in the actual file name. So you could keep that in mind. Whatever you want your user kit preset to be named has to happen in EZDrummer when you use the Save As feature. As you can see, I have no user kits in here because I deleted them. Let's pretend I'm on the other end and I just received this kit from a colleague. I'll go down to Manage in Explorer and I will drag my newly named user kit preset into EZDrummer 2's drum kit preset folder. Remember, I renamed it. Now I'll go back to EZDrummer 2 and I'll look in our kits, user kits. We see nothing here. I will rescan user kits again. And then there's our user kit preset with its original name. There's a workflow on how you can share your user kits. Keep in mind, if you save a user kit from the EZDrummer 2 modern kit, for example, but you have a different expansion pack or kit open, like the vintage kit, you won't see the modern kit you just saved, and vice versa. User kit presets are saved solely to the kit you have loaded up, even if you've added kit pieces or instruments from other kits or expansion packs. Now let's take a look to the left of the kit button. There's this preview pad. It's the bar at the bottom that has the name of the currently selected instrument in the middle, and a light graphic going from left to right that gets taller behind the name. Click on the preview pad from left to right. What you're hearing isn't a volume change. These are dynamic changes, as in hitting the instrument with more force. We're not turning the instrument up in volume. You do that here with the volume knob or on the mixer page. The left side of the preview pad is where the instrument was hit with the least amount of force, and the right side with the most amount of force. Since dynamics are different than volume, you can trigger them in your DAW's piano roll By hardware, you're using like a 𝗣𝗘𝗥𝗓 or a MIDI controller, or by using the Edit Play Style tab in EZDrummer 2, which we'll cover in a different video, but here's how you get to it real quick if you want to mess with it. Go to your browser or search tab. Drag a MIDI block to your timeline and double click on that MIDI block. There's the velocity knob here on the right side. You can now make your beat go from jazz to death metal with the turn of a knob. Well, maybe. Just keep this in mind. If you're looking for a soft sounding snare, but just can't seem to find it, it may be because you're auditioning all snares at 100% velocity, because that is the default. So clicking on this bar is great to audition sounds with. Now lastly, on the Instruments tab, the Details button. This is as important as GPS for your car in my opinion. It tells you where all your notes are going. If you use EZDrummer as a self-contained program only, you may never need this page, so you know not to worry about it. But for people that want to control EZDrummer with their hardware, play live or record with it, like with V-drums or a MIDI controller, or people that program with the piano roll in their DAW, which is how I work 90% of the time, this is the page that tells you what note controls what instrument and what articulation in EZDrummer 2. Also take note that each instrument may or may not have different articulations, more so with the hi-hat, ride, and snare. The hi-hat has a lot of different articulations that are needed in the digital world of drumming. This Details tab reveals all of them. The snare, for example, doesn't have a side stick sound at first glance, but here it is. And here is how you can audition it without having to find an EZDrummer MIDI file or hardware. Just click on it. Even the toms have a rim shot. And really important is how you squelch cymbals. If you play with the velocity of your squelch note in your DAW, you can get different squelch timings. That's a power tip for you picky producers out there. This is also how you can play the 3 different zones on your ride cymbal. If you're going under the hood of EZDrummer 2, look in the Details menu and know what your instrument's capabilities are. Also, if you reference your MIDI notes as numbers and not as notes of a scale, just hit this key button. Lastly, about what instruments are assigned to what notes. If you go to the menu button here and go to Sound Libraries, find the kit you're working on, in this case, the Modern kit. Select MIDI Layout. Here you can see the entire kit laid out in MIDI notes or numbers. I have a side note about the percussion instruments, which are claps, known here as one-shot, and the shaker and tambourine. If you use these solely inside the EZDrummer 2 program, you can ignore this quick tip. But if you use the shaker or the tambourine in your DAW's piano roll, with your 𝗣𝗘𝗓 or MIDI controller, the velocities are a technical nightmare in my opinion, and you'll run into a feature called Future Hit, which in my opinion, until explained better, is really a problem. So if you trigger the shaker or tambourine outside of EZDrummer, watch my Working with Future Hit tutorial video, which I'll link to in the description below. It will be a total turn-off to explain its characteristics in this video, which I know is getting lengthy already. Onward. We've covered a lot of territory, and we'll look at one more thing in detail before I go. How to load entire kits and their included factory presets. And I'll give you some time-saving advice as well. If you click on the orange box in the upper right, you'll reveal a menu. Depending on how many EZDrummer 2 expansion packs you've purchased will decide how many drum kits and mixer presets you can choose from. If you bought just EZDrummer 2, you'll have 2 choices, Modern and Vintage, which you can get many sounds out of, which you'll see. The Vintage kit has more raw or classic drum sounds, and the Modern kit will put modern production value of recorded drums at your fingertips. Each drum kit comes with many mixer presets, which change the sound of your entire kit in one click. Though they're called mixer presets, they'll change more than just mixer settings, which you'll see. So I'll just call them presets for now. To audition all these presets one at a time in order, click on the arrow buttons next to the orange box, clicking downwards. The '80s preset has that signature overdramatic snare, for example. Aside from hitting the arrow button again, if you know exactly what preset you want, let's left click on the orange box again. Mouse over the drum kit you're using, which is modern in this case, and select the preset you want in the pop-up sub-menu. I want the metal preset. As you can hear, the metal preset has that clicking kick drum we need to cut through those high-gain metal mixes. It's very cool. Now, finding a preset before you tweak your individual drums is a good first step, at least for me. Let's check out what's happening here so it's a little less mysterious. I load my default kit, which is the basic preset. I'm going to right-click on a few drums and notice they're all DW. Now I'll select the metal kit. The orange bar turns into a progress bar. If you have a weak computer, you may want to wait for that bar to complete loading before continuing. Now that we've loaded the metal kit, nothing has visually changed. But you'll see, when right-clicking on the instruments, the kit pieces, not all of them, but some, have changed. The toms are still DW, but the kick and snare are not. The same will happen with the cymbals too. And backtracking just for a second, if you want to use your kit's presets, but also want to use your mixer presets, you may want to choose your mixer presets first, because mixer presets will actually change some of your kit pieces. So I might choose my metal mixer preset before switching to the Gretsch USA Custom. Because when you select the metal mixer preset, it will change your toms, at least for this generic example, back to DW. Also keep in mind, if you made any individual volume adjustments, pitch adjustments, just any customizations you made on the drums tab may very well get overwritten by mixer presets. So if you're diving in deep to tweak, pick your mixer preset first. Trust me. A quick note, using mixer user presets will be covered in my advanced mixer video, but it's a really similar workflow as your user kits in case you want to get to it right now. Here's some last killer tips for any noobs out there. When using knobs in EZDrummer 2, if you hold the Command key on your keyboard on Mac or Control key on PC and then click on a knob, it will return it to 0 or its default value. Also, when you turn these knobs, you can make finer or slower adjustments by holding the Option key on your Mac keyboard, which is Shift on PC. This should apply to all knobs and faders. And lastly, if you mouse over and wait on buttons or on features in the program, a tooltip will appear. Alright, you made it. Thanks so much for joining me. It was a long haul, but that was the purpose of this in-depth video as opposed to my Easy Guide to EZDrummer 2 video, which is also available on my channel. This advanced EZDrummer 2 video is intended to be a first in the series, so do check back for more or hit the next button or look for a link in the description. Your comments, feedback, and corrections are always welcome below. Like and subscribe. I hope you got something out of this video, and rock on.